In the middle of Sunday evening's party, my daughter-in-law secretly slipped me her phone under the table. On the screen was a text message. "Mom, check your bank account right now. Something is wrong, leave immediately." I was shocked when I saw those lines of text, but then I quickly regained my composure and decided to trust my daughter-in-law. I went into the bathroom, opened the banking app. The numbers that appeared made my face drain of all blood. My heart felt like it stopped beating. I'm truly grateful you're here with me. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love seeing how far this story reaches and connecting with each of you. And just a small note, some elements in this story have been dramatized for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real names or places is purely coincidental. The reflections shared here are meant to spark thought and conversation. It was Sunday evening, October 2023, and our backyard in Westlake Hills was strung with Edison bulbs that swayed gently in the Texas breeze. The smell of mesquite smoke curled up from the grill where Ryan, my son, was holding court. He'd brought half a brisket and a pitch deck. Classic Ryan. "So here's the beauty of HealthLink Solutions," he was saying, gesturing with a pair of tongs like a conductor with a baton. "We're not just building an app, we're revolutionizing preventative care. Imagine real-time health data, personalized interventions, and a subscription model that scales." Our neighbors nodded along. The Caldwells, the Mitchells, a couple from Ryan's old MBA cohort at Stanford. Everyone sipped their Shiner Bock and looked impressed. Ryan had that effect on people. At 40, he still had the charm of a valedictorian and the wardrobe of a TED speaker-tailored navy blazer, no tie shoes that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. I was proud of him. Of course I was. He was my golden child, the one who made it. But Claire, Ryan's wife, wasn't smiling. She sat beside me at the patio table, her fingers knotted in her lap. 37 years old, a nurse practitioner with steady hands and a steady heart, and tonight she looked like she might shatter. Her eyes darted from Ryan to me and back again. She hadn't touched her wine. "Mom," she whispered. I leaned closer. "You okay, sweetheart?" She didn't answer. Instead, she unlocked her phone, tilted the screen toward me, and typed 4 words into her notes app. "Mom, check your bank now." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Just check," she breathed. "Please, right now." Ryan's voice carried across the yard. "Patricia, you tell them. You're one of our early investors. How's it feel to be part of the future?" Everyone turned to look at me. I forced a smile, the kind you pull out at church potlucks when someone asks how you're doing, and you lie through your teeth. "It's exciting," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "Really exciting." Ryan grinned. "That's my mom, always believed in me." I excused myself, mumbling something about needing the restroom. Claire's eyes followed me all the way to the sliding glass door. Inside the house felt too quiet. I walked past the kitchen, past the photos on the fridge of Ryan's college graduation, his wedding, his Tesla in the driveway, and locked myself in the powder room. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. Royal Bank of Texas. I'd been banking with them for 30 years. The app opened with a cheerful little chime. Checking account, $8,429.03. Savings account, $52,347.18. I blinked, read it again. $52,347.18. Last month, my savings had been $490,000, my entire retirement. The money Robert and I had scraped together over 40 years of teaching salaries, modest living, and careful planning. The nest egg that was supposed to carry me through the rest of my life, gone. I refreshed the screen. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the app was broken. $52,347.18. The number didn't change. My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the sink, then sat down hard on the closed toilet lid. The tile floor swam beneath me. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a band around my ribs and pulled. Where did it go? I scrolled down, my thumb clumsy on the screen. Transaction history. Pages and pages of withdrawals. Transfers. All of them labeled the same way. HealthLink Investment Series B. Capital call. HealthLink Investment Series B. Capital call. HealthLink Investment Series B. Capital call. Over and over. 12,000 here. 9,000 there, 47 withdrawals in 18 months. All authorized, all signed, all gone. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Outside, I could hear Ryan's laughter, big and confident, the kind of laugh that made people trust him. The kind of laugh I used to love. Now it sounded like something else entirely. My thumb moved on its own, scrolling down through the transaction history. I needed to understand, needed to see where it had all gone. 47 withdrawals, 47. Each one stamped with the same clinical label, HealthLink Investment Series B Capital Call. The amounts varied $8,200, here $11,800 there, $9,450 in March, but they all bled together into one long hemorrhage. 18 months of steady, silent drain. April 2022, June 2022, August, October, January 2023. Over and over, month after month, like clockwork. I pressed my palm against my mouth to keep from making a sound. Outside, someone laughed a high, bright peal that cut through the glass door. The party was still going. The brisket was still smoking. And I was sitting on a toilet lid watching my entire future disappear into a spreadsheet. It had started so differently. I could still see Ryan's face that afternoon in the fall of 2021, 2 years ago now, when he'd sat across from me at my kitchen table. He'd brought printouts, glossy ones. Charts with upward-sloping arrows and words like Scalable Disruptive Series A Close. Mom, this is it, he'd said, leaning forward with that intensity he'd had since he was a kid. HealthLink is going to change everything. We've got hospitals interested, venture capital, even a partnership with a university system. I'd poured him iced tea, listened, believed every word. I want you in on the ground floor, he'd said. Not because you're my mom, because you're smart. Because you taught me to recognize opportunity. He'd slid a document across the table. Private placement memorandum. I hadn't understood half of it, but I understood the number he pointed to, $150,000. It's a lot, I know, he'd said. But Mom, you'll double it, maybe triple. This is your nest egg turning into something real. I'd hesitated. That money was everything Robert and I had saved. 40 years of teaching second graders their ABCs. Summers we didn't travel, cars we drove into the ground, all of it sitting in a Royal Bank of Texas savings account, waiting to carry me through retirement. But Ryan was my son, my brilliant, driven golden son. Stanford MBA, Tesla in the driveway, a downtown office with a view of Lady Bird Lake, so I'd signed. And then I'd signed again. A second document tucked beneath the first, Capital Call Authorization Agreement. Ryan had explained it quickly, something about follow-on investments, making sure early backers stayed in for the next round. You won't even notice it, Mom, he'd promised. Just gives me the ability to move fast when opportunities come up. You trust me, right? Of course I trusted him. He was my son. Now, staring at my phone, I finally understood what I'd signed. Permission. That's what I'd given him. Permission to reach into my account whenever he wanted. To pull out $8,000 here, $12,000 there, over and over, until there was almost nothing left. And I hadn't noticed, hadn't checked, hadn't questioned. Because I trusted him. My throat tightened. This wasn't just about money. It was about every birthday card I'd saved, every report card I'd framed, every time I'd told people, my Ryan's doing something incredible. How could I have been so stupid? I thought about Robert, my husband, gone 5 years now, and the way he used to double-check every bill, every statement. He would have caught this in a heartbeat. But Robert wasn't here. And I'd been too trusting, too desperate to believe my son was exactly who I wanted him to be. The tears came hot and fast. I wiped them with the back of my hand, smudging mascara across my knuckles. Outside, Ryan's voice carried through the door. All right, folks who want seconds. Cheers. Applause. I looked at my reflection in the mirror above the sink, 67 years old, eyes red, hands shaking. For a moment, I didn't recognize myself. But then something shifted, hardened. I wasn't going to sit here and fall apart, not yet. I stood legs unsteady and smoothed down my blouse, tucked my phone into my pocket, took a breath. Then I unlocked the door and stepped back into the noise. The laughter hit me first, a wall of it, loud and easy, like nothing in the world was wrong. I stood in the doorway, blinking against the glow of the Edison bulbs, my legs still unsteady. Ryan was at the grill flipping ribs mid-story. The Mitchells leaned in grinning. Everyone looked so happy. I forced my feet to move, back to my seat at the patio table. Claire's eyes found mine immediately. Her hand twitched toward me. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. I sat down, smoothed my napkin, picked up my wine glass even though my hands were trembling. Mom, Ryan crossed the yard in 3 long strides, crouching beside my chair. You okay? He asked, his voice warm. He put a hand on my shoulder. You were gone a while. We were starting to worry. I looked at him, really looked at him. The same brown eyes I'd looked into when he was 6 years old and scraped his knee. The same smile that used to light up when I picked him up from school. Now I didn't recognize any of it. I'm fine, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Just needed a minute. You sure? He squeezed my shoulder gently. You look pale. I took a sip of wine I didn't want. Then I set the glass down and met his eyes. Ryan, I said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course. He pulled up a chair, sitting close. Too close. What's up? You told me the Series B round closed last spring. So why am I still seeing capital calls? For just half a second, something flickered across his face. But then it was gone, replaced by that easy, patient smile. Oh, Mom. He laughed softly, shaking his head. That's not a capital call. That's bridge financing. Totally different thing. Bridge financing, I repeated. Right. Short-term funding to get us to the next milestone. You signed the authorization for it. Remember back when you first invested? He tilted his head. We went over it. You said you understood. I stared at him. I don't remember that. Well, it was 2 years ago. He patted my hand. Don't worry, it's all standard stuff. You're not losing money, Mom, you're making it. This is how venture capital works. The way he said it, so calm, so reasonable, made me feel like I was the one who didn't understand. Like I was confused, forgetful, old. Ryan, here. He topped off my glass even though I hadn't asked. Have some more. Relax. You've been working yourself up over nothing. Before I could argue, Claire's hand shot out and wrapped around the neck of the bottle. Mom doesn't want more wine, she said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, but there was steel in it. Ryan blinked, his smile freezing. I'm sorry. She said she's fine. Claire pulled the bottle from his hand and set it down across the table. Let her be. The backyard went quiet. The Mitchells stopped mid-conversation. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. Even the music seemed to dip lower. Ryan stared at Claire. Then he laughed short and sharp. Wow, he said lightly, standing. Okay, didn't realize we were being so protective tonight. Claire didn't answer. She just kept her hand on my arm, her grip firm. Ryan looked at me, his smile still plastered on, but his eyes hard now. Mom, you good? I'm good, I said. Great. He clapped his hands together. All right, everybody who's ready for dessert. Claire made her famous pecan pie. The tension broke. People laughed, turned back to their plates. Ryan went back to the grill, joking with someone about burnt edges. But Claire's hand stayed on mine. She leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear. We need to talk, she whispered. Alone. After everyone leaves. I nodded. And for the first time all night, I didn't feel quite so alone. By 11, the last car had pulled out of the driveway, red taillights disappearing down the hill. The 3 of us stood in the backyard, surrounded by crumpled napkins and empty bottles. Ryan stretched, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm wiped, he said, yawning. You 2 got this. I've got an early meeting tomorrow. Claire didn't look at him. She just kept stacking plates. Yeah, I said quietly. We've got it. Thanks, Mom. He kissed the top of my head. Great night. Love you. Then he was gone, Tesla doors locking with a soft beep engine purring down the street. Claire waited until the sound faded completely. Then she turned to me. Inside, she said. Now. She led me into the living room and shut the door behind us, locked it. Then she pulled her laptop out of her bag and sat down on the couch, fingers already flying across the keyboard. I stood there still holding a dish towel, my heart starting to pound. Claire, what? Sit down, Mom. I sat. She turned the screen toward me. A spreadsheet? Rows and rows of numbers, dates, names I didn't recognize. At the top, HealthLink Solutions Investor Summary. This, Claire said, her voice shaking, is a Ponzi scheme. Ryan took $438,000 from you, and he took $2.3 million from 18 other people. I stared at the screen. The numbers blurred together. No, I whispered. That's not, he wouldn't. Mom! She gripped my hand, hard. Look at it, look. I forced myself to focus. Total investor capital $2,347,000. Operating expenses. Ryan Brennan's salary. $280,000 per year. Office lease downtown Austin. $120,000 per year. Tesla Model S lease. $85,000. Personal debt repayment. $400,000 marketing. Travel $315,000. Product development $0, revenue $0. I read it twice, 3 times. My brain couldn't make sense of it. There's no product, Claire said quietly. There never was. Ryan's been paying old investors with new investor money. That's it. That's the whole business. My throat closed up. But the office, the pitch decks, the hospital partnerships, all fake or exaggerated. He rented the office to look legitimate. The hospital partnership was one meeting that went nowhere. The venture capital firms, they passed. Everyone passed. But Ryan kept taking money from people who trusted him. She clicked to another tab, a list of names. Eleanor and Thomas Hayes, $180,000. Patricia Brennan, $438,000. Michael and Susan Caldwell, $95,000. I recognized some of them. Neighbors, friends, people who'd been at the barbecue tonight. He's been doing this for 2 years, Claire said. I couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She closed her eyes. Because I was terrified. Mom, I signed some of those documents. Tax forms, expense reports. I thought I was helping with bookkeeping, but if this goes to trial, a prosecutor could argue I was involved. Her voice cracked. I found out 6 months ago. I confronted Ryan. He told me if I said anything, he'd make sure I went down with him. So why now, I asked. She pulled up another window, a bank transfer receipt. Destination account Cayman International Trust, $200,000. Date, October 15th, 2023. He's moving money offshore, Claire said. And yesterday, he bought a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. Departure date, October 28th, 2 weeks from now. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the couch. He's running, I whispered. He's running, Claire confirmed. And if we don't do something now, he's going to disappear, and you'll never see a dime of that money again. I stared at the screen, at the numbers, at my son's name typed out in cold clinical rows. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft. Planned, calculated, deliberate. And the person who'd done it was the boy I'd raised, the boy I'd loved more than anything in the world. I looked up at Claire. What do I do now? She closed the laptop, leaned forward, her jaw set. We fight back, she said, but we need help. Claire made the call before I could talk myself out of it. She scrolled through her contacts, pressed a number, and put the phone on speaker. It rang 3 times. Then a calm, steady voice answered. This is Sarah Mitchell. Sarah, it's Claire Brennan. I need you, tonight. It's an emergency. There was a pause. Then, give me the address. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Sarah Mitchell walked through my front door at 10 past midnight carrying a leather briefcase and an air of quiet competence. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, dressed in a blazer and jeans like she'd grabbed whatever was closest. An elder rights attorney, Claire had said. Someone who'd seen cases like this before. She shook my hand. Her grip was firm. Patricia, she said, tell me everything. So I did. Claire sat beside me on the couch, filling in gaps I couldn't get through the spreadsheet, the offshore account, the plane ticket to Costa Rica. Sarah didn't interrupt. She just listened, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me. Here's what we're going to do, she said. First, and I can't stress this enough, you do not confront Ryan. Not again, not alone. If he's planning to flee the country, he's desperate. And desperate people make dangerous decisions. I felt a chill run through me. You think he'd... I think we don't take chances, Sarah said firmly. Second, I'm bringing in a forensic accountant. His name is William Torres, best in Austin. He'll audit HealthLink's financials, trace every dollar, and build a case that'll hold up in court. She flipped a page. Third, we hire a private investigator, Daniel Webb. He'll track Ryan's movements, where he goes, who he meets, what he's doing with that money. If Ryan tries to run early, we'll know. And fourth, she continued, we prepare 2 legal actions simultaneously, a civil lawsuit to recover your assets, and a criminal referral to the FBI for securities fraud. The feds take Ponzi schemes very seriously. My head was spinning. How much is all this going to cost? Sarah leaned back. That's the good news. I work on contingency. I don't get paid unless you get paid. Torres and Webb will bill hourly, but I'll negotiate their rates. And if we recover funds, their fees come out of the settlement. But what if we don't recover anything? Then you're out their fees, not mine, Sarah said. But Patricia, I wouldn't take this case if I didn't think we had a shot. Your son left a paper trail. He got sloppy. That works in our favor. Claire spoke up. I have documents, internal emails, financial records Ryan kept on a shared drive. I can get you everything. Sarah's eyes sharpened. You're willing to testify? Claire nodded. Whatever it takes. Good. Sarah pulled a contract out of her briefcase and slid it across the coffee table. This is a retainer agreement. It outlines my representation, the contingency structure, and your rights as a client. Read it. Sign it if you're ready. But Patricia... She paused, her expression serious. This will get ugly. Ryan will fight back. He'll say you're confused, that you didn't understand the investment. He might even try to claim you're mentally unfit. Are you ready for that? I thought about Robert, about the way he used to sit at this table and go over our finances with me every Sunday afternoon, the way he'd taught me to stand up for myself even when it was hard. I lost my husband 5 years ago, I said quietly. I won't lose my dignity too. Sarah smiled, small but real. Then let's get to work. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake this time. And I signed. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every signature, every lie. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision Sarah would have hated. I was going to see Ryan one last time, face to face. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was reckless. But I needed to look him in the eye and hear him try to explain. I needed to give him one chance, just one, to do the right thing. So at 9:30 Monday morning, I parked in the garage beneath the Frostbank Tower and took the elevator to the 14th floor. The office was everything Ryan had always wanted it to be. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lady Bird Lake, sleek furniture, a glass conference table, and on the wall behind the reception desk, a massive logo, HealthLink Solutions Revolutionizing Healthcare. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I'm here to see Ryan Brennan, I said. I'm his mother. She smiled. Oh, Mrs. Brennan, let me get him for you. A minute later, Ryan appeared in the doorway. He was dressed in a tailored suit, hair perfectly styled. When he saw me, his eyebrows lifted in surprise. Then he smiled. Mom, he said warmly, crossing the room. What a nice surprise. You came to visit. I didn't hug him back. We need to talk, I said privately. His smile faltered just for a second, then he nodded. Of course. Come on back. He led me into his office corner view mahogany desk-framed degrees on the wall. He gestured to a chair, but I stayed standing. What's going on? He asked, closing the door. I didn't waste time. I want my money back, all of it. $438,000. His face went very still. Then he let out a slow breath and sat down on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. Mom, he said gently, I understand you're upset, but you need to remember you signed the capital call authorization. What's happening right now is part of the investment process. It's normal. Normal, I repeated. Yes, there are risks in venture capital. You knew that. The money's not gone. It's working. It's building something. Building what exactly? I asked. Because Claire showed me the financials. There's no product, no revenue, just your salary and your Tesla and your debts. His jaw tightened. For a moment, the charm slipped. Claire doesn't understand the business, he said, his voice cooling. She's a nurse, Mom. She doesn't know how tech startups work. She showed me proof, Ryan. She showed you her interpretation. He stood up, pacing now. Mom, you're not a tech person. You taught second grade for 40 years. You don't understand scaling burn rates or growth strategies. HealthLink is on track. We've got hospital interest. partnerships in the pipeline. I felt the ground shifting under me again, the same feeling I'd had at the barbecue, like I was the one who didn't get it. Like I was too old, too slow, too confused. But this time, I didn't let it take hold. "Then prove it," I said. "Show me the product, show me one hospital contract, show me anything real." Ryan's expression hardened. "You know who put you up to this, Claire. She's been poisoning you against me because she's jealous. Her husband's a mid-level software engineer. I'm building an empire. She can't stand it. This has nothing to do with Claire, doesn't it?" He leaned forward. "Mom, I love you, but you're letting her manipulate you. She's turning you against your own son." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. "I'm giving you 72 hours, I said quietly. "Return the money, all of it. Or I'm filing a lawsuit and I'm reporting you to the FBI. The room went silent. Ryan stared at me. Then he laughed short and bitter. "You're going to sue me," he said. "Mom, do you have any idea how expensive lawyers are? You'll burn through whatever you have left in legal fees, and you'll lose because you signed documents." "I have a lawyer," I said, "and I have evidence." His smile disappeared completely. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice flat now, cold. "A big one." I turned and walked to the door. My hand shook as I reached for the handle, but I didn't let him see it. 72 hours, Ryan. I walked out. Behind me, I heard his office door slam. Then faintly, his voice low and sharp, talking to someone on the phone. "We have a problem." I kept walking, past the receptionist, into the elevator, down to the garage. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, and realized I was shaking all over. That wasn't my son in there. I didn't know who he was anymore. 3 days later, I was driving south on Mopac Expressway, windows cracked, NPR on the radio. Thursday afternoon, sunny traffic light, almost normal. I had an appointment with William Torres, the forensic accountant. He'd asked for bank statements, tax returns, anything to trace where Ryan had moved the money. I had it all in a folder on the passenger seat. I was doing 65 in the middle lane, approaching the Barton Springs exit when I tapped the brake to slow down. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. The pedal sank to the floor, no resistance, just empty air. My heart stopped. I pumped the brake again. Nothing. The exit was coming fast. Cars ahead were slowing. I was still going 65. I yanked the emergency brake. The car shuddered, made a grinding sound, but didn't slow. The cable hung limp. Panic flooded my chest. The exit ramp was right there, 30 feet, 2010, and I jerked the wheel hard, right cutting across 2 lanes. A horn blared. I clipped a pickup's bumper, felt the impact shudder through my hands. Then I was on the exit ramp, except I wasn't slowing. The ramp curved sharply right. My foot jammed on the useless pedal. Guardrail ahead, trees, a ditch. Time slowed. I saw every detail, the rust on the guardrail, sunlight through oak branches, the speedometer dropping 58, 56, 53. I yanked the wheel left, trying to avoid the trees. The car shot off the ramp into the grass. My head snapped forward, then back. The folder flew into the dashboard. Then I hit the guardrail. Metal screamed. The airbag exploded in my face. My chest slammed into the seatbelt. Pain shot through my ribs, my neck, my wrists. Everything stopped. I don't know how long I sat there. My ears rang. The airbag deflated in my lap. I tasted blood. Someone shouted. A door opened. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The next hour blurred. Paramedics, questions, a neck brace, an ambulance, then a hospital room with lights that hurt my eyes. A police officer came in while a nurse checked my vitals, young, maybe 30, notebook in hand. "Mrs. Brennan, I'm Officer Ramirez. Can you tell me what happened?" "My brakes?" I said. My voice sounded strange. "They didn't work." "We had your vehicle towed. The mechanic's looking now." 20 minutes later, his radio crackled. He stepped into the hallway. When he returned, his expression was different, serious. "Mrs. Brennan, the mechanic Frank Sullivan at Austin Auto, found something. Your brake line was cut, deliberately." The room tilted. "Cut," I repeated. "Yes, ma'am, someone tampered with your vehicle. This wasn't an accident." My mouth went dry. "Who would—" "That's what we need to figure out. Who has access to your car? Who has keys?" I stared at him. "Just me," I said slowly. "My daughter-in-law, Claire, and my son." He wrote that down. "Your son's name," I didn't answer. "Ma'am?" "Ryan," I whispered. "Ryan Brennan." Officer Ramirez nodded. "We'll follow up. Don't drive that vehicle. And Mrs. Brennan, be careful." After he left, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My left hand was bruised where it had hit the wheel, purple and yellow spreading up my forearm. I lifted it slowly, turning it in the light. And for the first time, I let myself think the thought I'd been pushing away since the brakes failed. He tried to take my life, my son, the boy I'd raised. He'd cut my brake line and sent me onto a highway knowing I might not survive. The tears came hot and silent. I'd already lost him, but now I knew he was willing to lose me too. A week later, I was home. Claire had moved into the guest room, handling the cooking, the cleaning, the phone calls I couldn't manage. My ribs were still sore. I had a bruise across my chest from the seatbelt that looked like a purple sash. But I was alive. On Thursday afternoon, Sarah Mitchell and Daniel Webb came to the house. They sat across from me at the kitchen table. Claire stood by the counter, arms crossed. "We've got something," Daniel said. He was ex-cop turned private investigator with the kind of face that had seen too much. He pulled out a tablet and turned it toward me. "This is footage from your Ring camera, above your garage door." I leaned forward. The screen showed my driveway in grainy black and white timestamp reading 2:17 a.m., the night before the accident. A figure appeared, dark hoodie, head down. The figure walked to the garage door, punched in the code, and disappeared inside. "Who?" Daniel tapped the screen. The figure re-emerged 15 minutes later, glancing over his shoulder before walking out of frame. He zoomed in on the face. "Ryan, my son, in my driveway, at 2 a.m, the night before my brakes failed. He was in your garage for 14 minutes, Daniel said quietly. "More than enough time to cut a brake line." My hands started shaking. Claire moved to my side, put a hand on my shoulder. "There's more," Sarah said. She slid a folder across the table. "William Torres finished his audit. Ryan's been doing this for years." I opened the folder. Page after page of financial records. MedTech Solutions, 2016, $400,000 in losses. Green Energy Ventures, 2018, $600,000 in losses. HealthLink, Solutions 2021 to 2023, $2,300,000 in losses. 3 separate schemes, Sarah said. Same playbook every time. Fake startup, real money disappearing. HealthLink has 19 victims. I felt sick. Last week, Ryan transferred $380,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. He's moving money out fast. "Can we stop him?" "We filed for a restraining order yesterday," Sarah said, "and reported him to the FBI for securities fraud and the incident with your vehicle." And her expression darkened. "The court denied the restraining order. The judge said we don't have enough evidence yet. But the video shows him entering your garage. His lawyer argued he was borrowing a tool, that anyone could have cut the brake line, that you're—" She hesitated. "That I'm what?" Claire spoke up. "That you're not mentally competent." I stared at her. "Ryan filed a counter-petition," Sarah said. "He's trying to get the court to declare you mentally unfit. He wants a conservatorship, legal control over your assets, your medical decisions, everything." The room spun. "He's telling people you have dementia," Claire added, "that you're confused, that you're accusing him because you don't understand your own finances." "That's not true." "I know," Claire said, "but he's convincing, and people believe him." That night, I checked my email. 3 messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. "Patricia, I heard about your health troubles. Are you okay, Susan?" "Hey, Patricia. Someone said you've been having memory issues. I'm so sorry." "Tom?" "Patricia, I ran into Ryan at the grocery store. He mentioned you're not doing well. I hope you're getting the care you need." "Linda?" I read them twice. Then I closed my laptop and sat in the dark. Ryan wasn't just trying to take my money. He was trying to take my credibility, my reputation, my voice. He was erasing me, and it was working. 2 weeks after the brake incident, I came home on a Friday evening. Sarah had kept me at her office late going over depositions, preparing for the civil lawsuit we were building against Ryan. The FBI investigation was moving, but slowly, too slowly. I pulled into my driveway just after 7, exhausted. The porch light was on. Everything looked normal. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, and smelled it immediately. Gas. Not faint, not a whisper of a leak, a wall of it thick, acrid, unmistakable, the smell of rotten eggs, sulfur danger. My brain screamed one word, run. I didn't turn on the light, didn't touch anything. I spun around, stumbled back out the door, and ran down the driveway, pulling my phone from my pocket. 911, what's your emergency? Gas leak. I gasped. My house, there's gas everywhere. I can smell it. Don't let anyone go in. Ma'am, what's your address? I gave it to her. Then I stood on the sidewalk, shaking, watching my house like it might explode at any second. The fire trucks arrived within 5 minutes. 3 of them, lights, flashing sirens, wailing. Firefighters in heavy gear swarmed the property. One of them, a tall man with a captain's badge, approached me. You're the homeowner. Yes. Did you turn on any lights, any appliances? No, I smelled it the second I opened the door. I ran. He nodded. Good, stay here. They went inside with gas detectors moving quickly. I stood on the lawn, arms wrapped around myself, watching the open front door like a black mouth. 10 minutes later, the captain came back out. His face was grim. Mrs. Brennan, he said, all 4 burners on your gas stove were turned on. No flames, just open gas lines. Based on the concentration levels, they've been running for at least 2 hours. My stomach dropped. 2 hours? Yes, ma'am. If you'd flipped a light switch when you walked in, the spark would have ignited the gas. Your entire house would have exploded. I couldn't speak. You're very lucky, he said quietly. An hour later, a detective arrived. She introduced herself as Lisa Morgan Austin, PD, mid-30s, sharp eyes notebook, already out. Mrs. Brennan, I need to ask you some questions. Who else has access to your home? Just me, I said. My voice sounded hollow. And my daughter-in-law, Claire, and my son, Ryan. Her pen paused. Ryan Brennan? Yes. The same Ryan Brennan involved in the brake line incident 2 weeks ago. I nodded. Detective Morgan pulled out her phone. Do you have a security system? DT, it's monitored. I'm going to need access to the logs. 20 minutes later, we were standing in my kitchen. The house had been aired out, the gas dissipated, but I could still smell it in my mind. Detective Morgan had her laptop open on the counter, scrolling through the ADT security records. Here, she said, turning the screen toward me. Someone disarmed the system and entered through the front door at 5:03 p.m. today, 2 hours before you got home. Who? The access code used was... She squinted. Code number 3. Whose code is that? My mouth went dry. Ryan's. He's had that code since he was a teenager. I never changed it. She wrote that down. Then she looked up at me. Do you have security cameras? Ring, front door. Let's pull the footage. I opened the app on my phone, scrolling back to 5 p.m., and there he was, Ryan, walking up my front steps, punching in the code, opening the door, disappearing inside. 8 minutes later, he came back out, glanced at the camera, walked away. Detective Morgan watched the footage twice. Then she made a phone call. Yeah, it's Morgan. I need the FBI. We've got a second attempt. The next morning, 2 federal agents showed up at Sarah's office where I'd been staying. One of them was a woman in her 40s with short, dark hair and a badge that read, Special Agent Rodriguez, FBI. She sat across from me, hands folded on the table. Mrs. Brennan, she said, we've been investigating your son for securities fraud. But as of last night, this case has expanded. 2 attempts on your life in 2 weeks. Video evidence, clear motive. This is now a federal investigation. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means we have resources the local police don't. It means we can move faster. And it means... She leaned forward, her expression hard. We're going to get him. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. 3 days after the gas leak, I sat in a conference room at the FBI field office in downtown Austin. The walls were beige. The coffee in my hands had gone cold. Agent Rodriguez sat across from me. Beside her was another agent, a man in his 50s with gray at his temples. He introduced himself as Agent Walsh. Mrs. Brennan, Walsh said, we need to talk about your son. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice yet. Ryan's backed into a corner. Walsh continued. He knows we're investigating. He knows we have video footage, ADT logs, financial records. He's moved $380,000 to the Caymans. And 2 days ago, he purchased a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. Departure next Friday. He's running, I said quietly. He's trying to, Rodriguez said. But we can stop him. If we move fast. Walsh slid a folder across the table. We want to set up a sting operation. We need your help. I didn't open the folder. What kind of help? We need you to contact Ryan, Walsh said. Text him. Tell him you're tired of fighting, that you want to settle. Make him think you've given up. My stomach turned. You want me to lie to him? We want you to bait him, Rodriguez said gently. Ryan thinks he's winning. The restraining order got denied. He believes you're isolated, scared, ready to surrender. We use that. And then what? Then he'll agree to meet you, Walsh said. And when he does, you'll be wearing a wire. We'll have agents within 50 feet, GPS tracker on you, panic button in your pocket. The second he says anything incriminating, we move in. I stared at him. You want me to meet him, alone. You won't be alone, Rodriguez said. 6 federal agents within visual range. And Mrs. Brennan, we need a confession. We have circumstantial evidence, but his lawyers can argue he was there for innocent reasons. We need him to say it, to admit what he did. What if he tries to hurt me again? He won't get the chance, Walsh said. You'll have a panic button. Press it. We're there in under 10 seconds. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. Mrs. Brennan, Rodriguez said quietly. Your son has tried twice. If he gets on that plane to Costa Rica, we may never extradite him. This is our best shot. I closed my eyes, thought about Robert. You're stronger than you think, Patty. I opened my eyes. Okay. An hour later, I was in Sarah's car outside the FBI building. Rodriguez had given me a burner phone with Ryan's number programmed in. Keep it simple, she'd said. Short, defeated. I stared at the blank screen. Then I typed, I'm tired of fighting. Let's meet and end this. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. The reply came in under 2 minutes. Tomorrow, Lady Bird Lake Trail, 4 p.m., come alone. I stared at the screen. My hands were shaking again. Come alone. Sarah immediately called Rodriguez. 10 minutes later, Rodriguez called back. Her voice was tight. He's planning something, she said. That location's semi-public but isolated. Lots of trees. Easy to approach from multiple angles. And come alone means he doesn't want witnesses. What do I do? You go, Rodriguez said. But you won't be alone. We'll have agents in plain clothes, joggers, dog walkers, a couple having a picnic. You'll never see us, but we'll be there. And Mrs. Brennan, whatever happens, don't panic. We've got you. I hung up, looked at Sarah. Are you sure about this? She asked. I wasn't sure about anything anymore. But I nodded anyway. If you're still here with me at this moment, comment 1, so I know you're still walking this journey alongside me. And tell me honestly, if you were in my position knowing your own child might be planning something dangerous, would you confront them like I did? Or would you walk away to protect yourself? I truly want to know what you would choose. What happens next changes everything. And a quick note before we continue, the next part of this story contains certain dramatized elements added to deepen the narrative. If this type of content isn't for you, you're completely free to stop here. Saturday, 4 o'clock, Lady Bird Lake Trail. The afternoon sun filtered through the oak trees, casting long shadows across the jogging path. Families walked by with strollers. A man threw a tennis ball for his dog. A couple spread out a picnic blanket near the water. All of them were FBI. I stood near a bench, hands in the pockets of my jacket. Beneath the fabric, a wire was taped to my chest. On my wrist, a GPS tracker disguised as a fitness band. In my right pocket, a panic button the size of a quarter. Agent Rodriguez's voice crackled faintly in my hidden earpiece. We see you. Stay calm. He's approaching from the south. I turned. Ryan was walking toward me, dark hoodie, sunglasses, hands shoved in his pockets. He looked thinner than I remembered, tense, like a wire pulled too tight. He stopped a few feet away, didn't smile. Mom, he said. Ryan. He pulled a folded document from his jacket. I'm glad you came. Sign this and we can both move on. No lawyers, no drama, just done. I didn't reach for it. Why? I asked. My voice shook. Why did you do this to me? He let out a bitter laugh. You really want to know? Yes. He looked away, jaw tight. For a moment he was quiet. Then he spoke, voice low. Do you have any idea what it's like, he said, living under Dad's shadow? He was the perfect husband, the perfect father, the perfect man, and everyone expected me to be just like him. Stanford, Tesla, corner office. I built all of that, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough. So you stole from me. I was maintaining it, he snapped. The image, the success. I couldn't let it fall apart. And when you invested, I thought... He stopped, shook his head. I thought I could pay you back. I really did. But then HealthLink tanked, and the other investors started asking questions, and I couldn't... His voice cracked. I couldn't let you ruin it. So you cut my brakes. His eyes flicked to mine, then away. I just wanted to scare you, he said quietly. I thought if you were hurt, you'd back off. You'd stop asking questions. But I didn't. No. His voice hardened. You didn't. You kept pushing, kept threatening to go to the FBI, so I... He stopped himself. So you turned on the gas, I finished. Ryan's face went pale. Then he nodded. Barely. That time I was serious, he whispered. You were supposed to... He couldn't say it. It was supposed to look like an accident. My chest tightened. I forced myself to keep talking, to keep him talking. And now, I asked, what happens now, Ryan? He looked at me, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes, not remorse, not guilt, fear. Now we end it, he said. You sign, I disappear, and we both forget this ever happened. I opened my mouth to answer, and then I saw them. Two men, coming from opposite directions, fast, faces covered with bandanas. One of them had something in his hand, something that gleamed in the sunlight. A knife. Ryan, I started to say, but he was already stepping back, away from me. The men converged. One grabbed my arm, the other raised the knife. I screamed, and everything exploded into motion. FBI down on the ground. Agents swarmed from every direction. The man with the knife went down hard, tackled by someone in jogging gear. The other man tried to run and was slammed into the dirt by a woman who'd been walking a dog 30 seconds ago. Ryan turned to run. Agent Rodriguez appeared behind him, grabbed his shoulder, and spun him around. He tried to swing at her. She caught his wrist twisted and drove him to his knees. Metal clicked as she cuffed his hands behind his back. Ryan Brennan, she said, voice hard. You're under arrest for securities fraud, elder abuse, and 3 counts of attempted harm. Ryan's head snapped toward me. His face was twisted with rage. You set me up, he snarled. You did this to yourself, I said. Rodriguez hauled him to his feet. Another agent was reading him his rights. The 2 men, Marcus Reed and Tyler Hall, I'd learn later homeless men Ryan had paid $5,000 each, were being dragged toward waiting vehicles. Ryan looked at me one last time, not with sorrow, not with regret, with fury. You ruined everything, he said. I shook my head. My voice was steady now. No, Ryan, I said. You did. 4 weeks after the arrest, I sat across from Agent Rodriguez in a windowless conference room at the FBI field office in Austin. A thick manila folder lay open between us. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, cold and clinical. Mrs. Brennan. Rodriguez began sliding a printed spreadsheet toward me. We've completed the asset recovery phase. I need to walk you through the numbers. I nodded, though my hands were already shaking. We froze Ryan's accounts the day we arrested him. Between his business account, personal savings, and the offshore transfer to the Cayman Islands, we recovered $127,000. I blinked. 127 out of $2.3 million in HealthLink alone, yes. She paused. But HealthLink wasn't his first scheme. She turned the page. There in neat rows were 3 other company names I'd never heard before. MedTech Solutions, 2016, $400,000 lost. Green Energy Ventures, 2018, $600,000 lost. Safe Water Tech, 2020, $350,000 lost. Total victim losses across all 4 schemes. Rodriguez said quietly, $3.65 million. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. Your son ran this playbook 4 times. Each time he moved, cities changed the pitch, found new investors. You weren't the first Mrs. Brennan. You were just the closest. I couldn't breathe. How much do I get back? The $127,000 will be divided proportionally among 18 victims. Based on your $438,000 loss, your share comes to approximately $36,000. $36,000 out of $438. I'd given him everything: my late husband's insurance payout, our savings, the cushion Robert and I had built over 40 years. And I was getting back 8%. 2 weeks later, Claire helped me pack up the house in Westlake Hills. The 4-bedroom home where I'd raised Ryan, where Robert and I had celebrated anniversaries and Christmases, where I'd imagined I'd grow old, it was gone. I sold it to cover legal fees and living expenses. My new place was a 1-bedroom apartment in North Loop, a quiet neighborhood north of the university. The rent was $950 a month. The kitchen had laminate counters instead of granite. There was no backyard, no view of the hill country, no space for a garden. Claire carried in the last box and set it on the floor. "Mom," she said softly, "you're going to be okay." I wanted to believe her. Twice a week, I drove to Dr. Ellen Martinez's office for therapy. She was a trauma specialist who worked with survivors of financial abuse. I told her about the nightmares, the brake pedal sinking to the floor, the smell of gas filling my lungs, Ryan's face in the dark. "PTSD is common in cases like yours," Dr. Martinez said. "You didn't just lose money, you lost your sense of safety. Your son violated the most fundamental trust." I nodded, tears sliding down my face. In early December, I met with Prosecutor James Morrison at the Travis County Courthouse. He was a tall man in his 50s with graying hair and a calm, steady voice. He laid out the charges: Federal Securities Fraud, 18 U.S.C. Section 1348, 2 counts of attempted harm for hire. Texas Penal Code Section 19.03, the trial is set for April. Morrison said, "The defense will try to paint you as confused, vindictive, maybe even mentally unfit. They'll bring up the conservatorship petition. They'll claim you misunderstood the investment terms." "I didn't misunderstand anything," I said. He looked at me carefully. "Are you ready to testify?" I thought of the moment I'd opened that banking app in the bathroom during the barbecue, the moment everything shattered. "I've been ready," I said, "since I saw that bank balance." The courtroom doors were heavy oak, and they closed behind me with a sound like a coffin lid. April sunlight slanted through the tall windows of the federal courthouse in Austin, striping the wood-paneled walls in gold. I walked down the center aisle, my heels clicking against the tile, and took my seat in the second row behind the prosecution table. Ryan sat 20 feet away at the defense table, flanked by his attorney, Marcus Sullivan. He wore a black suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His hands were folded on the table in front of him, and his face was blank. No fear, no shame, nothing. He looked like a man waiting for a delayed flight. I searched his eyes for some trace of the boy I'd raised. There was nothing. Judge Charles Foster entered, and we all stood. The trial began. Prosecutor James Morrison opened with the evidence. He played the audio recording from Lady Bird Lake, Ryan's voice, flat and cold, admitting he'd tampered with the brakes, triggered the gas leak, hired 2 men to finish what he'd started. The courtroom was silent except for the faint hiss of the recording. I kept my eyes on Ryan. He didn't flinch. Morrison showed the Ring camera footage Ryan entering my garage at 2 a.m, staying 14 minutes. The jury leaned forward. Then came the financial records. William Torres, the forensic accountant, walked the jury through spreadsheets projected onto a screen. $2.3 million funneled through fake invoices, ghost contracts, offshore accounts. 19 victims, 0 revenue, a textbook Ponzi scheme. Then Morrison called the other victims. Thomas Hayes shuffled to the stand. He was 71, thin and pale, his hands shaking as he gripped the rail. He testified that he'd given Ryan $180,000, his entire retirement account, for HealthLink. When the money disappeared, he'd had to cancel a heart surgery he couldn't afford anymore. His wife, Eleanor, followed. She was 68, small and gray-haired, but her voice was steady. She told the jury how Ryan had come to their home for dinner, how he'd held her hand and said, "I'll take care of you both like you're my own parents." Her voice cracked on the last word. When Morrison called my name, I stood and walked to the witness stand. My legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. I swore the oath and sat down. Morrison asked me to describe what had happened. I kept it short. I testified about Claire's warning, the missing $438,000, the brake failure on Mopac, the smell of gas in my home, the meeting at the lake. I didn't repeat Ryan's exact words. The recording had already done that. I simply told the jury what it felt like to realize your son had tried to erase you. Marcus Sullivan, Ryan's lawyer, cross-examined me gently. He suggested I'd misunderstood the investment terms, that Ryan had been under enormous pressure, that he'd suffered a mental breakdown and needed treatment, not incarceration. I didn't argue. I just looked at the jury and said he knew exactly what he was doing. Ryan never took the stand. He sat in silence, his face a mask, while Sullivan delivered his closing argument about stress and second chances. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, 2 counts of attempted harm, elder abuse. Ryan's face didn't change. Judge Foster thanked the jury and set sentencing for 2 weeks out. The bailiff moved toward Ryan, but before they led him away, he turned and looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I wanted to see regret, shame, grief. But his eyes were cold and empty, the same eyes that had looked at me across the table at Lady Bird Lake. Judge Foster's gavel fell. Court is adjourned. Ryan was led through the side door, and he was gone. 2 weeks later, I walked through the same oak doors into the same courtroom. The benches were less crowded this time, just Claire Sarah Mitchell, a handful of other victims, and a few reporters in the back row. Ryan sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. He didn't look at me. Judge Charles Foster entered and we rose. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm. Mr. Brennan. The judge began adjusting his glasses. The court has reviewed the sentencing guidelines, the victim impact statements, and the arguments from both counsel. I am prepared to render judgment. He opened the file in front of him. On the federal charges securities fraud under 18 U.S.C. section 1348 and wire fraud under 18 U.S.C. Section 1343, this court sentences you to 15 years on the securities fraud count and 7 years on the wire fraud count to run concurrently. That is a total of 15 years in federal custody. He paused. However, the state of Texas has also convicted you on 2 counts of attempted harm under Texas Penal Code, Section 15.011, count of elder abuse, and additional charges related to arson facilitation. On those counts, the state sentences you to 35 years to run consecutively with your federal sentence. I did the math in my head. 50 years. No, he kept going. The court further orders that you serve a minimum of 40 years before eligibility for parole. Your total effective sentence is 57 years. 57 years. Ryan was 40 years old. He would be 97 if he got out. Judge Foster removed his glasses and looked directly at Ryan. Mr. Brennan, you betrayed the person who loved you most in this world. You exploited the elderly, you defrauded hardworking people, and you attempted to take a life not once, but twice. You are a danger to society, and this sentence reflects that. Ryan's face didn't move. Does the defense wish to make a statement? The judge asked. Marcus Sullivan stood. Your Honor, we intend to appeal. Noted, Foster said. He turned to the prosecution table. Does the victim wish to address the court? James Morrison nodded toward me. Mrs. Brennan has prepared a statement, Your Honor. I stood. My legs were steadier than I expected. I walked to the podium, unfolded the single sheet of paper I'd written the night before, and looked at Ryan. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. I began, Ryan. I said, my voice quiet but clear. Your father used to tell you character is what you do when no one is watching. You chose to become a thief. You chose to become someone who harms others. You didn't just take my money, Ryan. You took the memory of the son I used to love. My throat tightened, but I kept going. You sat at my table. You held my hand. You called me every Sunday. And the whole time you were draining my future piece by piece until there was almost nothing left. Then you tried to erase me entirely, once with a cut brake line, once with a house full of invisible danger. I looked at the judge, then back at Ryan. But I'm still here, and I'm going to keep living. I'm going to rebuild what you destroyed, and I'm going to make sure no one else has to go through what I did." I folded the paper and stepped down. Ryan was led out of the courtroom in silence. He didn't say a word. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Outside the courthouse, Claire wrapped her arms around me, and we both cried hers, the tears of relief, mine something harder to name. Grief, maybe, or the strange hollow ache of closure. Sarah Mitchell shook my hand. "You did it, Patricia. You stood up to him and you won." I nodded, but I wasn't sure won was the right word. I'd lost almost everything, my savings, my home, my son. What I'd gained was justice and the knowledge that Ryan couldn't hurt anyone else. That evening, the Austin American-Statesman ran the headline, "Austin man sentenced to 57 years for elder abuse Ponzi scheme." Claire brought me a copy the next morning. I stared at it for a long time, then folded it and put it in a drawer. A week later, I stood on the front steps of my new apartment in North Loop. The afternoon sun was warm on my face, the sky a bright, endless blue. For the first time in over a year, I felt something close to peace. It wasn't over, not really. I still had nightmares. I still checked my bank account 3 times a day. I still flinched when the phone rang. But Ryan was gone. The trial was over. The sentence was final. I took a breath, deep and slow, and whispered to no one in particular, "It's finished." It's October again. 2 years since the barbecue. 2 years since I opened that banking app and watched my entire future vanish into a number I didn't recognize. I'm 69 now. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in North Loop, a quiet neighborhood north of the university. The walls are cream-colored. The furniture mostly secondhand, the kitchen small enough that I can reach the coffee maker without leaving the counter. It's not the house in Westlake Hills, but it's mine and it's enough. 3 mornings a week, I volunteer at the Texas Elder Rights Alliance, a nonprofit downtown. I answer phones, file paperwork, and sit across the table from people who look the way I must have looked 2 years ago, bewildered, humiliated, afraid. I tell them my story. Not all of it, not every detail, but enough. Enough so they know they're not alone. I've also become a speaker. Over the past 2 years, I've given 47 talks at senior centers, community colleges, church basements, library conference rooms. I talk about financial fraud, about warning signs, about what to do if someone you love starts asking for money. The first time I stood at a podium and said, "My son stole $400,000 from me," my voice shook so hard I thought I'd collapse. Now I can say it without crying. Most of the time. Last spring, I started working with a state representative, a woman named Carol Jensen, to draft a new law. We're calling it Patricia's Law. It would require Texas banks to flag and delay large or unusual withdrawals from accounts held by people over 65, giving them 72 hours to confirm the transaction with a third party, an adult child, a trusted friend, anyone. It's not perfect. It won't stop every scam, but it might have stopped mine. The bill is in committee now. Carol says we have a good chance of getting it to the floor next session. Thomas and Eleanor Hayes have been helping us lobby for it. We met for lunch last month, the 3 of us, and Eleanor held my hand across the table and said, "We're going to make sure this means something." I believed her. Claire and I meet for coffee every Sunday at a little place on Burnett Road. She filed for divorce while Ryan was awaiting trial. It was finalized 6 months ago. She's working as a bookkeeper for a nonprofit now, and she's dating someone, a kind, soft-spoken man who teaches middle school science. She seems lighter these days, like she's finally breathing again. "You saved my life, Mom," she told me once. I shook my head. "You saved mine first." Ryan is serving his sentence at the McConnell Unit Estate Prison about an hour north of Houston. I haven't visited him. I haven't called. 6 months after sentencing, I received a letter from him, 3 pages handwritten full of apologies and explanations and promises to repay me someday. I read it once, folded it back into the envelope, and put it in a drawer. I haven't opened it since. I don't know if I ever will. Last week, I drove out to the cemetery where Robert is buried. It's a small place shaded by live oaks, quiet, except for the sound of the wind. I brought flowers, yellow roses, his favorite, and sat on the grass beside his headstone. "I kept my promise," I whispered. "I didn't let it break me." I stayed there for a long time, watching the clouds move across the sky, feeling the warmth of the October sun on my shoulders. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. Yesterday, I got an email from a former student of mine, a woman I taught second grade nearly 30 years ago. She'd seen an article about me in The Statesman. Mrs. Brennan, she wrote, "You were always my hero. Now the whole world knows why." I read it 3 times, then closed my laptop and walked out onto my balcony. The sun was setting over Austin, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. The city stretched out below me, messy and loud and full of life. I thought about everything I'd lost. My savings, my home, my son. But I hadn't lost myself. I'd stood up, I'd fought back, I'd testified, I'd survived. And now I was helping others do the same. I leaned against the railing, feeling the cool evening breeze on my face, and let myself smile. "Maybe that's enough," I said quietly. The sky didn't answer, but I didn't need it to. Looking back at my story, I see a woman who trusted too much, who believed family meant safety, who signed papers without reading them because love should never require a lawyer. I was wrong. If you take nothing else from my journey, take this: verify everything. Question everyone. Love does not exempt anyone from accountability. I raised Ryan to be successful, but I never taught him that character matters more than wealth. That was my first mistake. My second was ignoring the red flags, the vague explanations, the urgent investment opportunities, the pressure to decide quickly. Family drama stories like mine don't start with betrayal. They start with small compromises we convince ourselves are harmless. This is one of those grandma stories you might dismiss as old-fashioned caution, but I beg you don't. Elder financial abuse is an epidemic in America, and most perpetrators are family members. If your parent, grandparent, or elderly neighbor suddenly mentions large investments or seems confused about missing money, speak up. You might save their life. Here's what I learned the hard way. First, trust, but document. Keep copies of every financial agreement. If someone pressures you not to involve a lawyer, that's your answer. Involve 2. Second, share your finances with a trusted third party. I wish I'd told Claire or my late husband's sister about Ryan's scheme earlier. Third, it's not greed to protect what you've earned. Robert and I worked for decades for that money. Wanting to keep it safe wasn't selfish, it was stewardship. Fourth, betrayal by a child is survivable. Barely, but survivable. God gave me strength I didn't know I had. When I stood at Robert's grave and said, "I kept my promise," I felt a peace that, despite everything, reminded me I wasn't walking this path alone. Family drama stories often end with reconciliation, with hugs and apologies and healing. Mine didn't. Ryan wrote one letter I never answered, and I'm at peace with that. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. Sometimes it just means releasing the anger so it doesn't consume you. Grandma stories aren't supposed to include courtroom testimony, federal investigations, or prison sentences that span lifetimes. But here we are. If my story helps even one person recognize the warning signs, if the law named after me passes and saves even one family from this nightmare, then maybe, just maybe, it was all worth it. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your bank account is empty to ask questions. Don't let love blind you to lies. And don't ever sign something just because it's family. Your savings represent decades of work. Your home is your sanctuary. Your dignity is irreplaceable. Protect them all, even from the people you love most. Because sometimes the greatest danger comes from those closest to us. The call to action, first person. Thank you for walking with me to the end of my journey. I'd love to hear from you. What would you do if you found yourself in my situation, facing betrayal from someone you trusted most? Please leave a comment sharing your thoughts with me. If my story resonated with you, I hope you'll consider subscribing so you won't miss other grandma stories and family drama stories I share that remind us all to stay vigilant. I want to be transparent with you. While my story is inspired by real patterns of elder financial abuse and true crime cases I've studied, certain narrative elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this type of content isn't your preference, I completely understand. Feel free to explore other stories that better suit your interests.